everybody. Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's me and Nate again, 2 weeks in a row. It's been a while since we've done that. Usually we kind of fill in with a few other things, but I have been lazy about that. So you get some more dad chat. How are you doing today, Nate?
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to sound like Liam, that I'm not exactly having the world's greatest day, but I mean, I'm good. I went for a run. The weather was decently warm compared to how it's been recently, so I'm okay.
It has been cold as shit here, and I'm not a big fan of it because on Saturday it was nice. It was like 60 degrees, but you know how the Midwest does, where it just does whatever the fuck it wants, especially when it comes to the weather.
Yeah, I mean, England's kind of the same way, but the parameters are a little bit more constrained. Like recently, it has actually been colder than what I would consider the sort of normal in wintertime, but we still haven't had anything as extremely cold as what we had in December, or at least as sustained. I think I told you the story that in December we had a kind of a freak snowstorm, and then it stayed cold enough for it to actually, like, the snow to just persist on the ground for about a week. Eventually it warmed up and rained and it melted, and we haven't had any snow since then. But like, I think that I saw it snow maybe 3 other times the whole time I've lived here, and the longest it ever stuck around was like one time it snowed overnight, and then like it stuck around until the afternoon. That's the longest. Normally it's gone. If it snows in the nighttime, it's gone at first light. And so this was an aberration. And I would just say I don't miss Midwest weather, but I was home during Midwest weather, and I don't know, dude. American houses just on average have better insulation than British houses.
Dude, my pod shack has better insulation than your house does. Probably because I put it in there myself.
Right, and like, unfortunately, our landlady wants a new mortgage, so she's having a bunch of work done on the place. It's like super disruptive to our lives, and I'm having to kind of negotiate that. Which like it's not the builder's fault. They're doing what they're told to do. It's their job. Like, their time is money and stuff. But like, the improvements aren't improvements for anything as regards like our quality of life. Even though there's like, I mean, hopefully these guys will be able to fix some of the problems in the house as well. Right now, though, the work that they're doing is stuff so that they can fix like the incredibly poor quality of structural work that's been done on this house, so she can get a better mortgage. And it's like, cool. I mean, I get it. You're a homeowner or whatever. It is what it is. That's the landlord logic. But like, it is very funny. Just I won't go into too much detail, but the sheer volume of disruption. And it's just sort of like, but the radiators upstairs that haven't worked since we've moved in 3 years ago still don't work.
Right.
However,
well, it's not work. It's not work. As anything with capital, it's not about you, the person. It's about the property, and property doesn't get cold and complain. And if you don't want to be in that property, I'm sure that they will find someone else who will sit there and be cold in it.
I'm sure they can find, a house share of girls who all went to private school or boarding school together, and who will, all work in fucking service jobs or whatever that can like office jobs in the UK that, in America, those bullshit jobs that people like do you're up until very recently were doing TikToks about, like I make $100,000 a year to basically drink cucumber water. In the UK, like if you got one of those jobs, like you would be getting paid maybe $25,000 a year because the wages in this country suck so bad. But yeah, like there's an infinity number of house share idiots from the home counties who want to live in Zone 2 London. And so like we're fortunate to have what we've got in the sense of like the location, I suppose, but because we've got like the exit strategy on the horizon and no like clear date on when that's going to take place. And like, I don't think I would podcast about it until it's absolutely done, but it is like a thing that's going to happen. It's just
housing is becoming like, even here in St. Louis, it's, like I saw somebody posting listings for like a loft or an apartment in one of the more trendier areas in St. Louis, and they wanted like $1 million for it. And I'm sorry, if I had $1 million to spend on housing, it would not be in St. Louis. I love my city, but if I had $1 million that was just like, this is $1 million for where I live, it would be in Chicago maybe, or I would go to a bit of a bigger city because like I have $1 million. St. Louis is great for that, like for the 100,000-aire, but like when you're a millionaire though, you should go somewhere. You should get to a big boy city somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taken aback by two things that sound like contradictions in terms. One is the trendier part of St. Louis. I struggle to imagine such a thing existing. And the other one is...
we have young people that like to party. And they weren't... like. Now, to be fair, when I was a young person that liked to party, it was depression and dive bars. But we have like cool places where cool people go, like all the kids that go to Washington University and who have money to go to a nice college. They also come and spend their money out and about. So there are nice places here. I promise you. But
I know I've been there.
I wouldn't live in them.
It's just that I guess it's funny because Indianapolis has Broad Ripple, which is, around I can't remember if it's by Butler University campus or if it's another university campus, but like it's definitely not by IUPUI's campus. But there's, like the sort of bar district, the kind of college bar district of Indianapolis is this relatively small area. I can't remember the cross streets. I want to say it's at like 58th and Kessler, but I really can't remember. And it's just funny because Indianapolis doesn't have the sort of attraction of a city, or rather a university like WashU. Like people who are international, people who aren't from the Midwest or not in higher ed may not mean anything. But like Washington University in St. Louis is like actually considered a really good school. It's like in the U Chicago kind of tier, Northwestern. What are some other ones off the top of my head that I can think of? Like, I guess you could maybe say it's sort of like Midwest Duke. I think that's probably a better comparison. That's like a...
Where's Duke University?
Duke's in North Carolina. I think it's in Chapel Hill, but I can't remember.
Okay, I guess that doesn't count as...
Or Durham. Yeah, it's somewhere in the triangle, like Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. Because you have UNC there, you have Duke there. I think you have Davidson there, but I can't remember. There's like a bunch of universities around that area. And like there's a bunch of universities in Indianapolis, but like...
I went to college in a strip mall, so I don't fucking know.
As a Hoosier... None of them are really all that. I mean, they're not bad. They're not dog shit, but they're not, by no means would they be considered elite. Whereas like people who went to Northwestern will tell you it's an elite school. People who went to U Chicago will, it's an elite school because they're like privatizing the last state-run part of your economy and sending death squads after you. And so it's just like, yeah, thinking about the trendy part of St. Louis is funny to me. But yeah, Roger, like I've been there. I remember around the WashU campus and stuff like that. Like, got it.
Yeah.
But also the idea that the other contradiction in terms there, Francis, is the idea, like you said, of spending $1 million on a like, because isn't the whole point of living in fuck off dog shit Midwest city that like you have a 5,000 square foot apartment that's like $300 a month? Like, why on earth, if you, like you said, if you had $1 million, why on earth, unless it was like the whole building and you were going to be a slumlord, would you spend that much money on an apartment in St. Louis, Missouri? Even if it's a penthouse, I don't give a fuck. It's still in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, it's still, so this area, if you know St. Louis, it's down near the Central West End, which is one of the rich, trendier areas. We have our LGBT trendy area, which is the Grove. We have our trendy area for people my age and older, because we used to hang out on the Loop, but the Loop has changed, but for the better, because they got rid of all the drugs, and now we're all old and we don't want the drugs around anyway, so we're happy about it. So we have all of our places, but Central West End, that's where like the Sub-Zero vodka bar is, where the bar like has a part of the bar is just ice, like, so, and that's what they serve vodka shots on, is like the ice bar, so that it's really fucking stupid. But again, I drink because I was depressed and an alcoholic. Some people drink to be trendy. Maybe that does something for them. I don't know, but yeah, $1 million. I would take $1 million to leave St. Louis, because you know who has millions of dollars and lives in St. Louis is the fucking Mcluskys. And there's a reason, because they have a lot of money, because you can have a couple of $1 million and live really high on life in St. Louis, as long as you're cool with living in St. Louis, which, I dog on it, but not a bad city. As you can see, as the Mclusky's
really well
demonstrated,
in Indianapolis, if you
as the
have a lot of money.
Mclusky's demonstrated, you can get a gun and point it at anybody, and you're fine here. So as long as you're rich and white.
Oh, I was really confused for a second. Like I was like, who are the Mcluskys? And I remember it's the gun people, like the lady with like the Saturday Night Special, and the guy with what looked like an AR-15 that looks like an M16.
Yeah, he had a fucking classical M16 looking AR, and they got those guns taken away, and they will. The city is not giving them back.
Because see, I thought you was like, we said the Mclusky. I was like, oh, is it like Mclusky, like the fucking hardcore band, or is it like, is it like some Canadian comedy duo or something like that, where they're twin brothers? I can't fucking remember. But no, it's those people, right? Those people, the meme couple with guns who got mad at the protest. Yes, Roger.
Yeah, those people live near Central West End in a
house that looks like it would make Papa John blush because it was too fucking ostentatious. Like I remember seeing photos of the inside of their house. I'm just like, guys, like if you have this much money to spend on Italianate bullshit, just go to like move to Italy. Like you can get visas as rich people to live in Italy. Like go to Italy. I know they don't have Dave and Buster's in Italy, but like come on.
What they also don't have are zero laws on being an ambulance chaser lawyer, which is how those people make their money. So
I would like it more if the band Mclusky just decided they wanted to live in St. Louis and they like had made a lot of money somehow from like Fugazi style DIY, all ages shows and shit. And they're like, where will our money go the longest? And they just decided on St. Louis, Missouri. So like business success ex retired hardcore band.
Yeah, they went into they started just buying up a bunch of row houses that are 100 years old specifically so they could do basement shows in a place that's grungy and dirty, but like gives the kids a safe place to be grungy.
You know what's funny is I think Mclusky are actually from Wales. They're definitely from the UK. So
that's like Wales is like the St. Louis of the United Kingdom.
Oh yeah, you're goddamn right. Yeah. Wales is it's hard to describe a part of the UK that's more systematically written out than Wales, in the sense that like Welsh is a minority language in the UK, but like it's not spoken by enough people to really get the kind of protected status that some minority languages get. Like there is an effort to make stuff bilingual in Wales, but like the economy of Wales has been so devastated by deindustrialization and the sort of England and London centricness of this country, fucks any non-London region over. And don't let this make you think that I'm one of these people who wants to hate on London and be like, no, the true authentic Britain is outside. It's like, no, London is still Britain, and London has some of the worst income inequality in the country and some of the worst poverty in the country. And there's this tendency to be like, oh, if you're fed up with shit being bad in this country, like if you're white and you live in, the Shires, then that anger is taken seriously. And if you're not white or you're young and you live in a big city, then somehow you're an effete urban liberal, whatever, like it's a lot of stupidity. So that's my kind of preface. But Wales, man, like one of the things that I think is the most shocking about Wales is that like the way that it's so fucked infrastructurally, like it takes longer. I'm looking at a map of Wales right now, just like on Google Maps, and like there's Cardiff, there's Newport, and there's Swansea. That are all, south, and they're on the Wales,
coast,
on the southern coast,
and that's it. Like,
but getting to North Wales from South Wales takes so long. The trains are so fucked. There's so few of them, and like they run so irregularly that you could do like multiple trips back and forth on the Eurostar between Paris and London before you could get one single train to take you from Cardiff up to the northern tip of North Wales.
But to do what? Where are you going to Roos on the Sea for, or Clown Bay? An old clown?
I feel as though
Colwyn.
Francis, there's a degree to which, we can make fun of things, but like with pronunciation, but I feel like you will absolutely meet the end boss of being unable to pronounce shit and just fucking giving up if you start trying to talk about places in Wales. It's Colwyn Bay, Rhyl, Bangor, like there's areas like Anglesey, there's areas in North Wales that are more densely populated. Wales in general is not particularly densely populated, and South Wales is way denser than North Wales for sure. But like, I think the thing about it is with Wales is that like Welsh independence is never taken seriously. Even Welsh sort of cultural identity isn't taken seriously by the English. There's a lot of rich Tories who've moved out to Wales because it's beautiful out there, but like it's very, very poor. I think the only place in the UK, I mean, there are poorer areas in Cornwall, in and around the northeast of England. Like Cornwall is the southwestern tip of England, like the part that goes the furthest out into the Atlantic Ocean, the sort of like long stocking foot that goes all the way out. That's Cornwall, and that's one of the poorest areas in the UK. But then also areas in the northeast, like if you're familiar with that whole kind of area from Liverpool, Manchester, up towards the Scottish border, but particularly up like Blackpool, Preston, that whole area, Lancaster, Blackburn. There was a time when the UK was in the EU, and there was a survey of the poorest like constituencies in EU countries. Now, bear in mind, this was done in the mid-2000s, so the data reflected surveys from the early 2000s, from before Poland, Romania, a bunch of Eastern European countries had joined the EU. So like understand that this would have changed to some degree because like there are just going to be areas in Poland and Romania and Bulgaria that are poorer in general. But at the time, this was looking at all the UK, all the Low Countries, France, Germany, Spain, and Portugal. I don't think it included Italy, but I can't remember. Maybe it did. Like if the data may just not have included Italy, but maybe it did. I can't remember. And it maybe it included Austria. I can't remember. If it did include Austria, that probably wouldn't matter because Austria is a really wealthy country. And like I'm not joking that there were a couple of places on there that were added. Like there's an area of Belgium that's really poor, and there's an area of the Netherlands that's really poor. And every other place on that list, the top worst poorest, constituencies in this region were in the UK, and they were either in Cornwall, in Wales, or in fucking the Northeast. So it's like it's hard to overstate how just like fucked over those areas are. And I mean, like with this recent thing, I don't know if you've seen news about it, with the UK government deciding to overrule the Scottish Parliament about a very, very minor change to their gender ID law. The British government, Westminster doesn't take what they call devolved sovereignty, like the Welsh Parliament, Scottish Parliament, Northern Irish Parliament.
They don't cotton to their bits getting all. I love how the British are still just like, how dare you? Like every other country has broken away from us, but how dare you now? And it's like, but you guys are a bunch of assholes.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Like when, it's the United Kingdom because of the Acts of Union, because they put a Scottish king on the throne of England. And so it became the United Kingdom of England and Scotland. And then also Northern Ireland, because at the time, like Northern Ireland is a creation, like the Ulster planters and whatnot, like the colonization of Ireland by the English and the Scottish is a different story. And I listened to Lions Led by Donkeys because Tom did a whole series with Joe explaining the troubles to him. Wales was already absorbed into the Kingdom of England, as of like the 13th century, I think. And so, yeah, like any kind of straying from the post on the part of the Welsh, like the English just don't take it seriously. The English don't take it seriously with the Scottish. And it's a fucked situation too, because like for better or worse, Nicola Sturgeon and the Scottish National Party, like they are, they kind of have more what you might call like political capital from their voters versus what you've got in England, which is just like, you have a system where the entire country is massively dominated politically by the Tories. But in Scotland, like there's hardly any Tory seats. So like here you have a part of the country where almost all of their seats are represented by their nationalist party. And, and yet like they have no power whatsoever because there's like not that many seats at all in like terms of total numbers. So like it's a fuck situation. We might generally see the English piss off the Scots so much that they wind up the English or basically would say that the independence referendum was illegal and invalid, but at a certain point, like who knows what kind of conditions that'll get forced into, because of popular discontent. So yeah, that's a long tangent starting about talking about the Welsh, but yeah, like I think that the Welsh it's a very, very bad situation. Like that's a part of the country, where like life expectancy is pretty low and like overall health stuff's pretty poor. Like it's been really, really, really fucked by deindustrialization and just by the fact that like, I don't know, the government in Westminster does not give a shit about Welsh people, and they never have.
I feel like just looking at this map, it looks like we can just cut Wales off and float it over to Ireland and, not become Irish, but to, maybe form kind of a two-state agreement of fuck the British, which I really think is just a sentiment that most countries have at this point. I'm looking at this place called the Wormhole in Ireland, which is a gigantic just rectangle of a hole where you can jump into because it's full of ocean when the tide is in. These places, like, look, this is what irritates me. Well, not really irritates me. Irritates me about America, maybe, is that like there's all these like fairyland places over there, and there's not really any here. It's all weirdly like created to bring people. Like you're not going to go to Ireland and see the world's biggest, anything. But in America, we have 4 world's largest balls of twine. So I don't know. I guess you take what you get.
But think about how badass it must be to be a Euro cowboy and then go to America and actually see a rodeo. Like actually see, people out herding fucking cattle, like wearing big Stetson hats and swinging lariats. Like
there's a restaurant in we have down in southwestern Missouri. We have ranching Missouri. Not many people know about it, but that's down where like Oklahoma is. So that's where like ranching kind of territory starts. And in the same time, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It's where the Precious Moments Chapel is, where all those horrible pastel babies that your grandmother collects, and eventually you're going to have to take them to Goodwill after she passes. Were all conceived in Missouri. If you can, if that suddenly clicks some things into place for you. But there's a
Precious
restaurant
Moments,
there.
Mommy and Daddy were fucking, and that's where they conceived the weird soldier Precious Moments figurine and so on and so forth.
I have yet, like, I would absolutely buy the soldier one, but I have yet to find one. So I want to get it and I want to actually paint it because the thing, I just hate how like pastel everything is. But anyway, there's a restaurant down there, and it's like attached to like a working rodeo. I don't know what it's called, like a rodeo area. Like in soccer, they call it the pitch, the field in football, wherever you do rodeos, whatever that's called. But my wife and I went down there and we specifically asked for seats so we could watch what was going on because they didn't have an actual rodeo going on, but they have rodeo classes. And we were watching 6 and 7-year-olds do goat ropes.
Yeah.
But they would just like come out on a little pony and they would hop off of the pony and they'd walk over to the goat, and his little baby goat can't be more than, a couple months old or so. And the kids got to like, take the goat down, which is basically just kind of lift it up and lay it down and then, tie the legs together, quote unquote. And then they're good. Then they get to go off. And, as a dad who takes my kid to Irish dance and Taekwondo, it's just like, man, there's so many other things that we could, that she could be. I mean, my daughter would not pick up a goat, or be around dirt if she could help it. But it is, I would love if you come in from Wales, and you're looking for a good time. I wouldn't suggest Southern Missouri at all, but if you insist on it, we can do that, and then we'll go to Branson, and we can go see where racism is still alive and well, but it's a theme park.
Let me ask you a question, Francis. If you had to explain the appeal of Branson, Missouri, to somebody from Wales or Ireland who was looking to travel to America to experience this place where they've had to feel the effects of its cultural hegemony their entire lives, and now they can finally visit the Great Satan, how would you explain the appeal of Branson?
Branson, Missouri. How best to explain it? Because I fucking love Branson. I like Silver Dollar City. Silver Dollar City is the theme park, I want to say, down in Branson. It's not independently owned. It is owned by like a theme park conglomerate. I don't know which one. So during COVID, they had to have masking regulations, and boy, people around there were not happy about it. But they're like, look, this is what comes down from corporate. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to do what fucking corporate tells us. But Branson, Missouri is just the city itself is like, it's like, imagine Las Vegas, but made by Ned Flanders. That's pretty much the thing. Like, you can go to Las Vegas and you can watch Penn and Teller. You can go see a magic show with Chris Angel. You can probably watch Britney Spears' musical. There's all kinds of stuff there. There's the Blue Man Group. There's Cirque
every
du Soleil.
DJ residency you can possibly think of if you're into electronic music. Yeah.
You know who has residency in Branson, Missouri? Yakov Smirnoff.
Yeah, I was going to say like fucking Raffi.
What a country. Yeah. Soji Tabuchi, who is a Japanese violinist. It's
Branson, Missouri is basically where all the closet gay Christian kids at my school went with their entire families on vacation.
Yes. That Branson, Missouri has a huge, like, it's not in Branson, it's just outside of Branson. But yes, because there are so many performing artists that have to be in Branson to do all of these shows and all of the Silver Dollar City and all these things, there is a huge underground gay community that nobody really talks about, and that's how everybody just wants to keep it. Like, nobody wants to acknowledge it. And because they don't acknowledge it, that means it can continue. They don't have to piss off all the, the gay arts kids from Indiana University, Missouri University, wherever, who come down and just like, look, I want a gig, and I didn't get Disney, so I got Branson. Still a paying job, whatever. And they also just like, we're gonna just keep it over here. We'll come to work. We'll live over there. It's fine. I believe they kind of self-segregate, but I'm not 100%. There's a documentary about Branson, Missouri. It is, I don't know. Like, you used to be able to go and get a tintype there where you got to dress up in old-timey clothes and get like an old-timey sepia photo taken. I watched a water show, The Waltzing Waters, where a guy with the voice of a chain smoker did this voiceover while showing us, water spraying in different directions with different lights against all kinds of music. It's a weird place, but I always it's called We Always Lie to Strangers. That's right. Highly recommend watching that if you want to understand what Branson is. It is very much a Midwest mecca. I wouldn't expect somebody from New York City to come down and just be like, no, I really need to, get an idea for the cultural makeup of this area, because there is a store that is like basically the racism store down there too, where like, they're just like, no, we proudly sell Confederate flags, and you can absolutely, like, they have a t-shirt making machine in the back, so you can go in and just have any design put on, and they don't care what it is. They'll put anything on there, which, guess how that goes.
Basically, a friend of mine once shared me a photo, and I think it's been around on the internet. I don't think he saw it himself, of a guy, I think he was in like Destin, in a casino or in some kind of gambling thing, and he was wearing a Branson style custom shirt, like with the airbrush letters that said "Let me pee in that butt."
Shirts that go hard.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Branson, Missouri, I just have a certain kind of like coterie of people I knew in school who were really into going to Branson, and like the kind of people that you would know who in real life who were really into going to Branson would like seem like the characters from Napoleon Dynamite in real life. That to me is the type of person who's really into it. Like, it's not like being a Disney adult. It's a different kind of American weird.
My wife always talked about how she liked to go to Branson, but she does talk. She had a friend who was black, and he's like, oh, you want to go to Branson? He's like, why would I want to go to some place where it's permanently 1884? Like, I'm black. And that is not to say that there's not, non-white people there. There certainly are. And personally, I've never seen any outward racism. Obviously, I'm a white dude, so I don't see the microaggressions. I don't see what happens, on the lowdown. But at least, they're not outwardly bad. But I can fully understand why somebody would not want to go. But also, you can watch, like, they have a blacksmith, they have glass blowers, they have a lot of the old arts that aren't really done anymore because we have machines that do them. You can watch somebody do those things. So if you're a blacksmith and your options are real limited, maybe you go be the blacksmith that tells people how to make horseshoes down at Branson, Missouri. Can't be that bad of a gig, and the standard of living, the cost is way down there. At least I think. I don't know. It's probably expensive in Branson, Missouri now too.
I mean, I heard that rents are starting to go down in places like New York because things are slightly over leveraged. I don't know. Like, I'm curious, and there's an economics podcast that I need to actually listen to in seriousness if I can get a little bit of free time, because talking about this like phenomenon that the rent being too damn high everywhere, but now I think that there is potential for people to like start lowering prices because like there's just less. I don't know if like people just aren't willing to pay those prices. I'm gonna have to look into it, but I'm interested in that in whether or not that's like we're actually going to see something, or if it's just going to stagnate. Because like my experience in America has always been like you don't get rent going down, you get rent at all going up slower than it was before.
Yeah, we're looking. My wife has the house that she owned when we got together. She still owns it, and we've had a guy living there who just basically pays to upkeep the house, and that's it. And we're looking at selling it, and goddamn, like it's not a big house. It's not in a great neighborhood, but this is like, no, you can get probably a lot of money for it. And it's like at some point in time, this has to come down, right? Like at some point, and I keep waiting for it to. Of course, it hasn't happened yet, but I do feel like at some point in time, something's going to snap, and either these prices have to come down, or we're going to end up seeing a lot of people getting shot over the. We're going to see the real Hunger Games, I guess.
It's really interesting in the United Kingdom because, everything sucks here, but the minute that anything starts to potentially threaten house prices, which are comically inflated, that's when like stuff stops being, sort of like imaginary bullshit, never taken seriously, and heads actually start rolling. That was the thing that was very funny with what happened when Liz Truss was prime minister. That her equivalent to like the head of her. It's a different arrangement of powers, but basically the Chancellor of the Exchequer is sort of like the equivalent of like the Secretary of the Treasury, but also like at the same time kind of the head of like the OMB. Like that Chancellor role, they present the budget to Parliament, but they also like are the people who direct or like they have a significant role in directing monetary policy. I mean, the actual monetary policy stuff is through the Bank of England, which is independent of the government because Tony Blair decided to make it that way. It's sort of like the Fed. Little differences here and there, and I'm obviously not a subject matter expert, but basically like they came in and their plan was to do like just libertarian, stupid free market shit. And the idea was basically that they were presenting a budget where they were just going to cut services even more and then also cut taxes. And it was obvious that like the services that the sort of promises they were making weren't going to happen. And so that was going to require them to take on debt. And sovereign bond markets were just like, no, we genuinely don't believe the UK is going to be able to meet its obligations for this debt. And so all of a sudden, like the pound started tanking and bonds were no longer like, like I said, I'm not a bond trader. I don't really know that much about it, but as I understand it, buying sovereign debt then raises interest rates because people don't see it as a safe investment. It's not rated as a safe investment. And so there's like, in order for the government to basically like sell its debt, they have to pay at a much higher interest rate. It's sort of like, because investors, institutional and otherwise, just assume that they're not going to be able to meet those obligations, that debt's going to be written off. So there's a higher risk there. And so, it's like they're basically saying, we don't trust you to not default. We rank your debt the same as like Russian sovereign debt in the 90s or Argentine sovereign debt in the early 2000s. Like that's pretty hilarious for a country that literally used to run the world. And
I imagine 10 Downing Street just starting to get like phone calls every hour and a half from a collections agency, like threatening to garnish their wages. Like we're going to have to, who's your prime minister now?
Well, this is really funny, Francis, because the prime minister right now is Rishi Sunak, but like, this is really funny you should mention that because they basically had to request an IMF bailout in the 70s because like inflation was really bad and the government like wasn't able to handle their budget shortfalls. And it turned out that like they actually didn't need the IMF bailout. Like they had just done their math wrong. I'm not joking. They had done their math wrong.
Who's among us, Nate?
And they actually were getting way more revenue from North Sea oil at that point than they realized. And so like they didn't actually need the IMF to bail them out. But they started doing stuff that, cutting the state budget and stuff like that. And it kind of like started this race to the bottom that then led to Thatcher being elected. And that's a really, really simplified version of the story. But like the British making arithmetic errors in stuff that involves like national importance economics. This is like,
happened. And the thing is that the thing that kills me though is that with something like this, you would like, oh shit, we made a mistake. We actually have more money. Should we give this money back since we don't need it? Do we? Maybe not.
I mean, here's the thing, right? Is it like Thatcher then just basically started slashing budgets and slashing taxes and like, because the state was such a huge employer at that point, like, their unemployment rate was catastrophic in the early 80s. Like it was unbelievable how bad things got in this country. And I don't know, man, like I can count off the top of my head. I mean, like supposedly there was something to do with in Thatcher's initial budgets where they had made like they basically made like a formula error, and they wound up doing something that was really deleterious to the British economy. I don't know the specific details. I do know the thing about the North Sea oil revenues in the 70s and the IMF bailout under when Jim Callaghan was the Labour Prime Minister. They basically like dithered on a decision that caused them to crash out of a thing that sort of like guaranteed that the pound's exchange rate against other European currencies in the early 90s, and that caused like a period of time when the pound crashed and like the government lost a ton of basically any asset valued in pounds was suddenly worth a lot less. And so like this was a preventable thing, a thing they saw coming, and they didn't do anything about it, and it wound up causing a recession in the early 90s. So I'm not joking that like that's three examples I can think of, and I'm not giving you the like scholarly historian interpretation. I just happen to know them from caring about the news. Like this thing with Truss and Kwarteng, because her chancellor was Kwasi Kwarteng. The two of them just like massively fucking it and just putting out bullshit garbage numbers that everyone can see through. That's like a proud British tradition in its own right. Genuinely, this country, like the stuff with
the only people who will never be free of British rule are the British people. Like in the end, they are truly boned by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, they basically the empire turned inward. And I mean, like,
yeah, everybody started kicking it out, and it's like, well, who do we have to kick around? It's like, well, I guess we still got our people that we can kick around. We were just sending them out to like be fruitful and multiply, but they keep getting killed wherever we send them. So I guess we're just gonna have to kick the shit out of them here in the home country. Like even Brexit, even like that whole insanity is the British just being like, nah, man, we got to fuck ourselves. We can't fuck anybody else. We got to fuck ourselves.
I mean, it's genuinely very funny. I don't know how much time we have if you really want me to go into like the sort of history.
We don't have to. We've discussed a lot of British politics.
The thing that I'll do is because people are maybe curious about Brexit, and my take on Brexit is that like, look, the European Union is not a great organization, but the European Union weirdly it does some things very, very well and some things very, very badly. And one of the things that it does very badly is actually guarantee human rights. So any kind of human rights argument is a joke. I mean, you have only to look at Hungary. You have only to look at Poland. You have only to look at the European sort of like Frontex, like the European fucking border enforcement. The way that they basically like go out of their way to, you know, fund prison camps in Libya to stop people from crossing the Mediterranean. They go out of the way to like scuttle rescue ships so migrant ships drown in the Mediterranean. The Greeks basically putting people on boats, like rescuing migrants and putting them back out to sea. The EU like is not great on human rights at all. However, the EU does a lot of stuff to normalize conditions, normalize standards across Europe. And as such, even your like most bloodless, you know, free market liberal like Eurocrat probably has a more generous conception of workers' rights than your garden variety British Tory in 2023 or in 2016 when the Brexit referendum happened. So I feel like part of Brexit was that they weren't allowed to be as mean as they wanted to immigrants. Well, no, but that's the thing, though, is that the Brits got everything they wanted. They got so many concessions from the European Union. They didn't have to join Schengen, which meant that like they didn't have to give up their border control, internal border control between EU countries was still in force. They still had passport checks. They still had hard borders. They didn't have to join the euro. They basically got all of these carve-outs that the European Union wouldn't have granted to any other member state because Britain, you know, was and is a major economy. And obviously London is this huge financial center. And so what wound up happening is like the coalition took over in 2010. They just started doing insane austerity, just savaging the UK's economy, cutting everything they possibly can, cutting and hurting the poorest and most vulnerable people first. And you know, when austerity started to make quality of life worse, especially outside of major cities, you know, because like wait times were bad and schools were overcrowded and the NHS couldn't respond, and all this stuff that's become like a national crisis now across the country was starting to develop in some of the more further flung and like mid-sized city, like downscale cities in the UK, especially in the north. especially in Wales, especially, in the kind of deindustrialized parts of the country, in the Midlands, etc. They just, they were like, no, this is the European Union. They blamed it on the EU, and they said, no, the reason why we can't do social spending is because of all this money that goes to Brussels. The reason why your life sucks is because of immigrants, and so on and so forth. But one of the things that I find really cynical about the whole enterprise is that Britain's membership in the European Union and in the common travel area, and the fact that Britain has this very strange libertarian streak, and it can be like weird freak economic libertarian stuff, but it can also be kind of like social libertarian stuff too, like, which you wouldn't think is the case. But for example, the Brits refuse, they really, really balk at the idea of ever being asked to show ID, which, like, not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just kind of, it's strange as an American, because like, I get fucking ID'd in America mailing a package via UPS. I get ID'd in America going to a doctor's appointment to get into the building the doctor's office is in New York, for example. If back when I used to live and work in New York City, if I wanted to go anywhere I went to, any building I wanted to visit, even if someone had made an appointment for me to visit, doesn't matter, show ID. Like you will sometimes have to show government ID to do, basic stuff. I remember having to show government ID to like get a gym membership. I've never had that happen in the UK. Like, that's why that is crazy to me. It's like, but how do they know that you are who you are? And the thing is, it doesn't matter because you're paying them money, right? And they accept ID, like in the sense like you can show a credit card, for example, to like pick up a package, whereas like in the US you would have to show government ID. But the point I'm trying to make though is that like Britain was probably the easiest country in the EU for an EU resident to come to and get a job and not really have to jump through a bunch of bureaucratic hoops and deal with like protectionist stuff, which great. But the thing about it is that that's a very liberal argument for immigration, which is good. I don't disagree with it. But in the hands of the British, that just was carte blanche to use imported labor to drive down wages and to basically build the foundation of the UK economy on people that we don't have to educate, we don't have to safeguard, and we don't have to care for in retirement. They just come here and work for dog shit wages in dog shit conditions, and we exploit their labor. It's very, very, very cynical. And the problem is that those same people who were doing the exploiting, by and large, you're sort of like shithead small business owners and like your big mid-sized companies, etc. We're all super pro Brexit, but like British people don't want to fucking do those dog shit jobs for low wages. Like they cut off their supply of cheap labor because now it's really difficult. And now because it's so difficult to come to the UK, like why in the fuck would someone from Romania or Bulgaria or Poland or, Lithuania, why would they want to come and deal with all of this bullshit in Britain, to be treated like garbage, to live in bad housing, to not be paid very well, when like, quite frankly, you can get a good paying job in Germany, you can get a pretty good paying job in France. Like we're not talking like white collar job advancement shit, but like in terms of like trades making money, you can make pretty good money in Germany. You can make pretty good money in Switzerland. You make pretty good money in Austria. Like, you know what I'm saying? Why would you put up with the Brits and their dumb bullshit? Like it was easy, and it was easy to like start your own business. It was easy to do a lot of stuff. Now it's not easy anymore. And like why the fuck would I put up with that? So the long and short of this is the Brits, like for all of the hemming and hawing about Brexit and like the pro-Brexit or the pro-Remain side, all that stuff, at the end of the day, Britain had the sweetest possible deal you could have from the European Union. And they wound up, this country is so racist and so stupid that the people whose bottom line benefits the most from exploiting EU labor decided they wanted to go like, John Bull, land of hope and glory, dumb bullshit. And they absolutely shot themselves in the dick to own the foreigners. And to me, nothing could be more British than that. Genuinely. Yeah. It's the fuck you, I'm going to set the whole building on fire kind of right. And like I'm weirded out by the idea that it's a good thing to be like, hell yeah, we can just anyone can move here. Like I understand that it's something that I go back and forth on, because like fuck all borders, but also like the way borders exist in the European Union basically creates a situation where it's incredibly easy for exploitative employers to import a workforce and use that to drive down wages. And that's not the workers' fault. That's not immigrants' fault. That's not an argument against immigration. It's just that at the end of the day, the conditions that were able to create those problems were because of the Brits and the total, like the absolute joke of enforcement in this country when it comes to working standards, when it comes to like, you know, standard of living, things like housing quality, like when it comes to workplace enforcement of actual safety rules. Like it's a joke of a country. And so in a way, I'm sort of like, I'm torn because I absolutely am. I'm like, fuck all borders. Like anyone should be able to move to where the fuck they want to live. But I would say when the Brits are in charge,
but the British need to be contained.
Expect the absolute worst possible outcome. Like, I don't know. And like, that's a, like, how do you square that circle? How do you reconcile those positions? I genuinely don't know. I'm not saying this as someone who's like, I have the answers, like here, you know, blah, 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 buy my fucking brain pills, buy my dick pills, like, you know, take my online seminar for how you can lift weights and get laid. I don't know. I genuinely don't know the answer. But what I do know is that...
To any of those questions, really.
Yeah, I mean, like, I do think that, you know, lifting weights is pretty good if you do it correctly and, you know, you don't go insane.
You're married, so I assume that you get laid.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope, right? You know, like, it's kind of part and parcel of the deal if you're being a good partner to your spouse. But yeah, like, I don't know, dude. I've kind of rambled a bit, and I recognize that I'm rambling, but like, I just think about this sometimes that it is really, really amazing to watch a country go fucking ballistic and just completely burn its own house down and be like, ha, owned libs, fucking owned. And it's like, all right, cool, man. Like, what?
Well, Nate, let me to cap us off for today. I'm going to tell you a dad story that a dad experience that I had. Across the alley, there's a dog. There's a husky. It's always outside in the backyard. A very friendly dog named Rocky. And the other day, I noticed there was another dog in the backyard, and that's kind of happened before. But like a dog gets in because you know there's a gap in the fence. But this time, the dog, you know, like the mom is a husband and wife and 2 kids. And I noticed this other dog out. So I saw the dad out and I was like, oh, hey, I saw that you got a new dog. And the father does not speak very good English. They're a Hispanic family. And the kids are like, you know, early teenagers, maybe, you know, 13, 14. They speak English pretty well, but the dad does not. And so, you know, between his broken English and my broken Spanish and we kind of get it going. It's just like, yeah, you got the new dog. It's like, yeah. It's like, so I said, did you just need a friend for Rocky? And he says, my daughter. Oh, my birthday, daddy. I want. And then he just does that, you know, that universal shrug that says, what the fuck are you going to do? I got a new dog. You know, you don't have to have necessarily the words when the idea of my child was pestering me and I decided, fuck it, this was easier than having to deal with it, is just such a universal kind of thing among dads. So really good, really enjoyed that bonding moment with the guy who I have no idea what his name is, but I know the dog and I pet the dog all the time. So I don't know, I should probably be a better neighbor. But Nate, I know you got to go. I got to go too. Thank you everybody for listening. Buy things in the store, get on the Patreon, give us reviews. Tell us how much you love us. If you want to hear more British stuff, I'm sure we're going to talk about it. We always seem to complain about the British on this show. This American podcast about the military with 2 Americans on it. Sure do talk about the Brits a lot.
Well, but I mean, like I did make the critical error or decision. I mean, it's worked out great for us, but you know, I did take the plunge and move to Britain in 2018, and so I've just been like, you know, a front seat witness to all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I also was having to experience all of this happening to me, I would probably just be like, this is fucking insane. But I experience the things that happen to me in America, and I choose to ignore them because they are insane.
Right. Well, you know what? I've got Brexit and, you know, everyone's utility bills going up 1,000% and the government being like, yeah, just starve to death. We don't give a shit. Like service-based economy where no one can afford services. And you've got Eric Greitens machine gunning a lake and probably going to win higher office again. So
no, we kicked him out. He's gone. You can't use Eric Greitens against us. He lost his Senate bid. He came in 3rd. So we got rid of Greitens. Please don't look at all of the other fascists that we've elected in. But at least that one is gone for a little bit until he comes back.
Until he comes back, of course.
Everybody, thank you, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Have a good one.
Zoom, zoom, zoom.